The following conversations are taken from our channel membership exclusive weekly live show that we do on Saturdays from 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time called Members Talk Live. Find out how you can become a member and appear on the show. All of the information is down in the description below, as well as all the links to the channels of today's guests. Check them out, and I hope to talk with you very soon.
What about Short Logan?
That was
so good. I was thinking good comic accurate Logan.
Comic book accurate. Yep.
That was one of my favorite variants. That was so. I thought they could have gone further with the variants. When they got to the eventual Wolverine, I was like, oh man, it's over already. That was so fast. They could have done. I think they could have done a little bit more with that. Guys, it is here. We have witnessed it. It is real. Deadpool and Wolverine is now playing in theaters, and we've seen it. We've witnessed the greatness with our eyes. Well, we'll talk about how great it ended up being, but joining us for this discussion, we've got the Ace Avenue. We've got Have You Seen That with T, Michael Entity. Guys, Deadpool and Wolverine, we're here to discuss all the spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, be warned, it is all of the spoilers. We are not going to hold anything back. If you just think, hey, maybe I'll jump in here and check it out, see what these guys are talking about, but I haven't seen the movie yet and I don't want to know anything, then get the heck out of here because you're going to know everything. Let's just get into it, man. This is the spoilers discussion of Deadpool and Wolverine. And starting off with the spoilers, since we're going to get into everything, we're going to break down the plot of what we witnessed.
I know I turn everything into a joke, but I care. Or I want to use that for something important. I waited a long time for this team up.
In 2018, Wade Wilson used Cable's time-traveling device to save his friends at the end of Deadpool 2. He also decided to jump timelines into the sacred timeline of Earth 616 to interview with Happy Hogan about joining the superhero team, the Avengers, but was ultimately rejected. 6 years have passed, and Wade has returned to his timeline and has retired from being the masked mercenary known as Deadpool and now works as a used car salesman alongside former X-Force pal, Peter. He also has been broken up with by Vanessa, but the two remain as friends, and during his birthday party, Wade is captured by TVA official Mr. Paradox, who offers him a place on the sacred timeline. However, Paradox also reveals that Wade's timeline is deteriorating as a result of the death of Wolverine seen in 2017's movie, Logan. Logan was the timeline's anchor being, of which a universe cannot survive without. In desperation to find a replacement anchor being, Wade steals Paradox's tempad to travel the multiverse to find a variant of Logan to save his timeline. After encountering various Logan variants, Wade takes one back to the TVA, only to discover he is considered the worst Wolverine in the multiverse. Paradox prunes them both into the void. There, Deadpool and Logan encounter Fantastic Four member Johnny Storm, once again played by Chris Evans. But the three are quickly captured and taken to Cassandra Nova, the twin sister of X-Men leader Charles Xavier. Nova, who was pruned as an infant but made a deal with the TVA to stay willingly in the void as its ruler, kills Johnny and leaves Wade and Logan to be consumed by Alioth, but the two manage to escape. Out in the borderlands of the Void, they meet members of the Resistance against Nova. Elektra, once again played by Jennifer Garner, Blade, once again played by Wesley Snipes, Gambit, first appearance by Channing Tatum, and Laura, aka X-23, once again played by Daphne Keane. This Resistance proposes an alliance with Deadpool and Logan to fight Nova, but Logan refuses to cooperate. However, he eventually relents after a conversation with Laura about his inability to save the X-Men of his universe. Deadpool, Logan, and the others go to confront Nova, and they manage to block her powers by placing the helmet of Juggernaut on her head. However, Nova is betrayed and injured by her henchman Pyro on behalf of Paradox, but Logan convinces Deadpool to remove the helmet, allowing Nova to heal and open a portal back to Deadpool's timeline. Upon arrival, Deadpool and Logan find that Paradox is using a device he developed to mercy kill timelines called the Time Ripper, which he plans to use on Wade's timeline without permission from his superiors. Nova quickly learns this from Pyro before executing him and arrives through another portal and kidnaps Paradox, planning to take control of the Time Ripper to destroy all timelines, leaving only the Void for her to rule. Nova then summons an army of Deadpool variants to battle Wade and Logan, but Peter comes to Wade's aid and convinces them all to retreat. Paradox tells Wade and Logan that one can disrupt the power flow of the Time Ripper at the cost of their own life. Using their bodies as conductors, Wade and Logan destroy the Time Ripper, killing Nova And after being alerted by the disruption in the timeline, Hunter B-15 arrives and arrests Paradox. Wade requests that B-15 return the Resistance members he met in the Void to their respective timelines, and she reveals that Deadpool's timeline is no longer deteriorating as Logan has been accepted as the new anchor being. Logan hopes for a change in his past, but Hunter B-15 tells him that his past is what makes him the anchor being needed to save Wade's timeline, and there's no reason for change. Logan is taken by Wade to meet his friends along with X-23, and with Logan's encouragement, Wade reconciles with Vanessa as credits roll. This was a highly anticipated movie for the entire year. I mean, this is the event of the year. How did it stack up for you guys? Let's get into our first initial thoughts. Let's start with you, Michael.
I really loved it. Obviously, like as we'll discuss more, there are definitely some flaws, but really the best parts about this film overshadow any flaw that I could personally have. I loved this movie so much from the opening credits scene. I mean, come on. When I heard that violin play, I'm like, I know this song, and it just happened. Deadpool with the skeleton. I mean, it just I don't know how much more Deadpool we can get. I mean, this is the movie I wanted. This is the movie all you guys wanted. This is a movie that people that don't even like Deadpool wanted. I mean, what else can I say? You know, there's just so much to say, but let's hear from everybody else now. Me personally, I loved it.
Oh, I definitely enjoyed it. It was a good time. It was a fun movie. And for some reason, when people say it's a fun movie now, people take it negatively. I don't understand that. But this is a fun movie. It was a good movie. I had a blast. It had one of the greatest cameos. I don't like, and we'll talk about cameos a little bit later.
Yeah.
I had a few good ones, but there was one in particular that really had me up in my seats. It was a good time at the theater, man. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
This was, to me, the most fun that I think you can have in a Marvel movie. From the jump, they set the tone immediately. Like Michael was saying, from the beginning sequence, you knew that this was going to be that type of movie. A movie that doesn't take itself super serious. Now, is it perfect? No. We'll get into why it's not perfect, but it did its job. I had expectations. It kept it right there. I'm not going to say they exceeded it or lowered it, but it was perfect for what I was expecting. Everything about this movie absolutely hit for me, and I feel like this could be the movie to kind of get Marvel back on track.
Frank, first thoughts. What do you think? What was your first impressions of Deadpool and Wolverine?
It's all that I've hoped for since 2022, going back to when it was first announced that Wolverine was miraculously going to return. It's everything to expect from a third sequel, even though they said it was a sequel. Well, it is a sequel, but not at the same time, because it really is like a buddy film. And it's interesting when you think about it. The first Deadpool was the way he narrated it was like a love story. And then moving to the second part, it was a family film, and now this is basically a buddy film. But it just exceeded all my expectation. And Zach, we've been talking about this since the beginning of this year about anticipated movie, and now here we are months later, and it was just worth the wait. It really was for this whole time.
So I saw it on Thursday. And I mean, like Frank just said, we've been talking about this for 2 years. We've been talking about the speculation, the expectations. It was pretty much impossible to not go in there with all of that in my mind. And when I first watched the movie, I really enjoyed the first hour the most, I would say. I thought the first hour was really kicking it. And then when we got into the second hour, I kept kind of waiting for something to come, and I never really felt like it did. And so I felt like my first experience with the movie was just a little bit tainted with how I was going into the movie. Also, I had to pee from the second that Johnny showed up. So for the for the majority of the movie, I was literally just trying not to wet my pants because I needed to go, and I was like, okay, there's got to be a good time for me to go. I'll go right now. And then Elektra popped up on screen, and I was like, okay, that's one cameo. Maybe I'll go now. And then Blade showed up, and I was like, okay, well, I can't go now. Obviously, things are happening. So my mind was occupied with urine. So I went back the last night to go watch it again. I didn't have to pee, so I could fully focus on the movie. And I did find that elements of it that kind of were iffy for me worked a little bit better, and aspects of it that I thought were okay kind of stayed okay. So I didn't fully love this movie, but the one thing that everyone's saying that I can't deny is that it was a ton of fun. I had a big smile for the majority of the movie. I had a lot of fun with things that popped up. And let's just get into some of the things that popped up, because I want to start at the very beginning. Because Marvel took major liberties with the fact that this doesn't affect Logan at all. And I just want to say, go back to the tape of Logan of our rewatch review. Totally called it. This movie opens with Deadpool in the woods of Nova Scotia, is it? I think it's North Dakota, I think.
North Dakota.
Yeah, North Dakota. Digging up the grave of Logan. and taking the skeleton out, I thought was just a great beat. It was hilarious. But the way that this movie opened up, I mean, for me, it's like the perfect opening. NSYNC, Bye Bye Bye. Love that song. Love that group.
It's great.
The pure chaos and just violence of him taking parts of Logan's skeleton body and killing TVA members as the credits are rolling, the opening credits are rolling. I was loving every second of the way that this thing opened up. What did you guys think of the way that they opened up this movie? Did it hit you as hard as it hit me? Because I freaking loved it. It's one of my favorite sequences in all of the Deadpool franchise.
The one thing these Deadpool movies have always had is very creative opening sequences. Like the first movie, the second one, even with the Celine Dion song that was really good. That song was phenomenal as well. But I didn't expect to see the amount of killing that we saw to Bye Bye Bye. Like Michael had said, as soon as that violin hit, I didn't think that they were going to do the entire song with him dancing and singing, but it's such a fun time.
Oh, the dancing killed me. He was doing the moves from the music video.
Yep, he was nailing it. Not going to lie, I kind of want like a super meta moment for him to kind of maybe look over, pan over, and you actually see NSYNC there. That would have blew my mind. But it was absolutely incredible. It's probably my favorite opening sequence, probably since Guardians of the Galaxy 2. With Baby Groot dancing. So maybe that's the key to Marvel in their opening sequences. Just have somebody dance and it'll be a phenomenal movie. But it definitely set the tone from the very beginning. Very, very creative as well. And it immediately put to rest any thoughts of them ruining Logan immediately, because they were saying they were going a different route. So immediately out the gate, they went this route. They said they weren't going to touch it. He ended up touching Wolverine in a different way, and it was just such a great sequence.
I mean, obviously, me fanboying like the first 5 minutes of this video. Yeah, the opening scene I thought was perfect. Like, I feel like that was such a great way, because I didn't really know how they were going to open the film, and it's also funny to see them actually doing the opening credits by actually showing people that worked on the film without saying like, what the hell, did you just kill her, or directed by an overpaid tool. They actually showed the names. I'm like, oh yeah, but they made up with it by just yeah, exactly. But I thought it was great. Obviously, NSYNC playing. I didn't know we needed that. Like, I did not know we needed that. I love NSYNC. Justin Timberlake's one of my favorite artists. So when I heard that, I was pretty happy. It would, like Ace said, it would have been nice to maybe see Justin Timberlake, or all the rumors where they said Taylor Swift was going to be in the movie, which she isn't, which is my only big disappointment. So I'm definitely going to give this movie a lower grade because of that. But yeah,
they played one of her songs though, didn't they? Didn't they play one of her songs?
I think they did. I couldn't tell. I'm not a big like Taylor Swift fan, so I don't know her like musography or whatever you call it. So I know
have no idea what song. I know they added Avril Lavigne's song during the car ride scene with
that might be the one that I thought was Taylor Swift.
Yeah, that was
that wasn't Taylor. That was Avril.
We just lost all the Swifties. There you go, guys.
Obviously we'll get into it, but like obviously it was that scene that took place in the car. I kind of lost my mind when they started playing "You're the one that I want" from Grease. I lost my mind, but great opening scene, set the tone for the whole movie, and was a blast from start to finish.
That opening scene, I was telling one of my coworkers who was going to plan on watching it on Sunday. She's just as a millennial as I am, and I was telling her, you are going to appreciate the opening when you go see it on Sunday. Just trust me. I'm not going to say more than that from there, because we'll talk about it either way on Monday at work. So yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed that entire opening, and my entire theater was just laughing and just vibing with all that we were seeing on screen. And there was no doubt that TikTokers are going to be dancing bye right as we speak, really.
Couldn't come at a better time for Justin Timberlake. Let's just say that.
I enjoyed the fact that they just got it out the way. Like, it was just like, all right, you guys are not, everybody's wondering if we're going to spoil, ruin Logan, which I didn't think they would in any way. But they turned it on its head. They made a joke of it. And after that, you kind of just, to me, I forgot about Logan until, X-23 shows up, which was a great part of the movie, by the way. Yeah. I'm not the biggest NSYNC fan in the world. And by that, I mean, I don't like NSYNC at all. So him doing bye, I thought it was just funny. It was really cool. Just because it just set like you said, it set the tone for the movie. It just like, hey, y'all think we're about to make this MCU movie that's going to be, this great, by the numbers, Guardians of the Galaxy type, serious movie? Nah, this is still Deadpool. And that's what I enjoyed about it. This is still a Deadpool movie. And they just went with it. And I really enjoyed that.
And it's funny you mentioned X-23 because I was going back to the Logan rewatch the other day, and we were talking about the final trailer that you and Ace never saw. And I don't know if you guys went back and watched it, but at the end of that trailer, what Michael and I were talking about was they showed the scene when X-23 is talking to Logan and says, "You were always the wrong guy." Like, they revealed that at the end of the trailer. So when you at the end of the rewatch review said that you were hoping to see Daphne Keane again, I was watching Michael and I's faces. Dude, poker face. Good poker face. You didn't
Zach,
even
I wanted to say that because I kept looking at Zach as T was saying that. I'm just like, I was trying my hardest, like, not to laugh and smile, but I'm like, I'm gonna hold it in. But I'm glad that you noticed that, Zach. That was awesome.
I was watching us. I was like, okay, we did good. I don't think there's any indication to Ace or T that X-23 popped up at the end of that trailer.
It was hard.
I'm so glad I didn't see the trailer. That would have it wouldn't have ruined it for me, but it would have made me mad. Like, they should have definitely held that.
Same. It would. I mean, because I kind of knew that she was going to be in it at some point in time. It definitely wouldn't have like made or broke it for me either.
So I'll get it out of the way. The opening sequence was my favorite part of the movie. I was so excited to go back last night to watch it again just so I could experience that opening once again. But I know a lot of reason why people are here to hear us talk is going to be for these cameos, because the cameos was the big reason. Not the only reason, but a huge part of why people were excited and so anticipating to go see this movie. And I want to hear from you guys first. I want to hear what cameo hit you the most, which one surprised you the most, and was there any cameo that you were kind of like disappointed didn't make it in there? We'll start with you, T.
My favorite cameo was the Blade cameo. When Blade walked in,
I was going to guess that for you.
One, that was completely unexpected. I had no idea that like they even were talking to Wesley about coming back, but it was phenomenal.
When I saw Wesley come, like I lost my mind, and I felt so like I was afraid to be loud, but then everybody else in my theater got loud, so I didn't mind actually going yes. And the thing is, seeing Wesley back with that wig on, with the way he looked, it just reminds me of how I just want to see him in a new Blade movie instead. No disrespect to, the new film, which if it ever does come out, but seeing Wesley come back, because Wesley was so passionate about playing Blade. Like, he really wanted to play that role, was so passionate about all the movies, even Blade Trinity. He has even came forward, said that it wasn't great. So kind of seeing him and Ryan Reynolds in the same spot was almost kind of like an apology, like, hey, really sorry about that. Let's give you a better welcome back.
Screen Zen reviews in here. What's going on, dude? He says Blade was the most surprising and a Gambit fan cast. Wow.
Channing Tatum. Like, you know what? People give Channing Tatum like, oh, you know, he's not this, he's not that. But boy, when he does cameos, he does cameos. He goes on like he is so self-aware. He's so self-deprecating. Like, he understands his strengths, he understands his weaknesses, and he plays into it. And boy, he killed it as Gambit. I don't care what any if he would have said, remember, you know, my name is Gambit, remember it, that would have been completely awesome. The dialect coach joke. That was like
the dialect coach. The
Oh my God, I loved it.
It was so great.
Every time, because he, like, everybody has this Gambit case. He sounded like the guy from the Waterboy, like the coach from the Waterboy.
Yeah, I didn't thought
like
about
a real
Tasty Odo.
yeah, a real Cajun. Like, it was so funny. Like, that was perhaps the highlight of the movie for me, was, you know, those cameos. And Jennifer Garner still kind of sucks. Like, they tried to make Elektra cool. It just didn't work for me. But yeah, X-23, like the whole little crew, the team up crew they had, that was phenomenal. Well done, well played, MCU. And I really hope that we see X-23 again in the MCU. Like, Daphne Keane, she gets it. She's phenomenal as a character. That speech she had with Logan, that was in the trailer. Terrible. Why would y'all put that in the trailer? That's so dumb.
I know. I tweeted the day that final trailer came out and the images were all over. I was like, 1 week. You're 1 week away. What are you doing?
Yeah, like that.
It's like you've already sold
scene
us.
was great.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. We were already sold, but that scene was really, really good. That was and that just showed me, like, she has legs. Like, she can definitely, that character. Not saying we don't need Logan, but you have a character, you know, especially with the young Avengers and stuff like that. She's perfect for that.
Gambit was the one where at one point, my brother turned over to me and he was like, "You're the only one laughing. Why are you laughing?" And I was like, "Because I get in all of these inside references."
Yeah.
Like, Gambit, the whole thing with Channing Tatum coming in as Gambit, everything that was said about him, everything that his dialogue was about how he never got his movie made. And it was hilarious.
Exactly.
It was so good. It was so smart. But yeah, it definitely, the Elektra one, none of my audience reacted. Both nights, none of my audience reacted to Jennifer Garner being Elektra, because that movie kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And she's not very well remembered. Blade got the biggest reaction. My jaw dropped, actually, with Blade, because I just was not expecting. I just didn't think there was any bridges left to mend for that to happen, and it happened. So that was incredible. The Daphne Keane one was spoiled for me, and the Gambit one just made me laugh. But my favorite one was Johnny. Johnny
that was
Storm
good.
popping up there,
That
because
was good.
I did, when he popped up, when it was Chris Evans, I didn't think it was Captain America. A bunch of my audience members did. They were like, "Oh, Cap," and I was like, "I don't think so. I don't think it's Cap."
Flame
and
on.
when he flame
That was set
on
up
when he's
perfectly.
flame on, it was set up so well. It was so great, and it was just nice. It was just comforting, even though he wasn't Cap. It was just comforting to see Chris Evans back in the MCU. Just seeing him on screen again, it was so warming. It was such a warmth.
Yeah,
Michael, cameos. What stuck out to you? What worked for you? What didn't kind of work for you? If there was any.
Well, obviously, all the cameos I thought were pretty good. Obviously, you know, Jon Favreau coming back as Happy, which I kind of did expect, honestly, when Wade is sitting in the office and I heard the voice. I'm like, it's Happy. So that was cool to see him. I didn't like freak out when I saw him, but I thought it was cool to see him. Peter. Come on, Peter came back.
I love that Peter was back.
I was so happy when I saw that big old mustache. I'm like, Sugar Bear, it's good to see you again.
We are Deadpool.
Yeah, we are Deadpool. But as far as like the actual cameos, same thing with Elektra. Like, I actually got excited because when I was a kid, I used to love the 2000, I think it was 2003 Daredevil film. I used to love it. I still have a soft spot for it, even though it is an awful film. Like, we can all be honest. And then I had a little soft spot for Elektra too. And like I said, they're not good movies, but it was like, you know what? It's nice to see her in a better film, but it's not like it really did too much. And then obviously seeing Chris Evans as Johnny Storm, I actually did not expect. Like, I actually did think it was Captain America, so that actually really got me. But he had to go because, do you understand what he was doing to the budget?
That was hilarious.
Yeah.
That was hilarious, by the way.
And seeing Channing Tatum as Gambit, I thought it was hilarious. I mean, it was funny. I didn't know it was Channing Tatum at first, but hearing his accent, and it was just like, that's really interesting for Channing Tatum. And obviously, to all Zach's viewers, if you guys obviously know me and from Zach's live streams, you always know I'm making fun of Zach, saying, Zach, you got to watch Sling Blade. So when I heard that they made a reference to Sling Blade, I'm like, I guarantee Zach thought of me in the theater.
I did. I thought of you with Sling Blade. I thought of T when Blade said some people are still trying to skate uphill.
So did I. So did I.
Instantly, I thought of T. I
Yeah.
was like, somewhere T is very, very happy right now.
Extremely happy.
But as far
Same.
but as far as cameos that disappointed me, there wasn't really a lot. I mean, the one that I felt was kind of like a disappointment, but it turned out to be a great joke, was Tyler Mane coming back as Sabretooth, which I thought was kind of cool to see him. It would have been interesting to see Liev Schreiber come back, which I know like that would have kind of just been pushing it because it would just be cameo after cameo. But it's like, for a movie like this, I felt like there were so more other cameos that they could have actually brought in. But
Yeah.
I still think from the cameos that we got, it was still very satisfying. So I can't really say there was one that really bothered me a whole lot.
Yeah.
I was very surprised that there was no other X-Men. I thought for sure with Wolverine coming in here, I thought for sure we'd get a James Marsden, Halle
Yeah.
Berry, like someone. I thought for sure we'd get another X-Men, and we didn't. But I will say, we did it to ourselves. But my most disappointing one at the moment was Lady Deadpool, because they never took
Blake
off
Lively.
her mask. They never took off her
Turned
mask.
out
I
to
was
be
in
Blake.
the credit scene. I'm like, okay, who was it? And it was Blake
was-
Lively. But
Yeah, I was like, I knew it just from the get-go. I'm like, who would play Lady Deadpool? I'm like, I have a feeling I knew who it is. And I saw the credit, and I'm like, yep, I kind of expected that.
it was just so
And I
built up.
I think she only
Yeah,
did
Frank?
the voice too, because
Yep.
that was someone else in the costume, not like Blake Lively herself that was in the costume.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure. It just said in the credits that it was Blake
Possible.
Lively. But Frank, cameos. As far as cameos go, which one stuck out to you, and which one excited you the most?
Well, just like you, the one that didn't expect, it was least expected. I'm glad they did not spoil it like they did with Daphne Keane. It was Chris Evans, and at first glance, you think, oh, this is a variant of Cap, who was pruned and stuck in the void for God knows how long. And right at the moment when it was hyping up the line of Flame On, and the first thing I thought about, the first instinct is like, I could do this all day, but no, it was not that. I almost leapt from my seat when he shouted Flame On, because right there you just know that this whole movie was just a homage being paid off to the previous Fox movies, the ones that we grew up with. And you know, it kind of came to fruition right at the credits at the end, when they showed the behind the scenes of the previous Fox movies. And honestly, like I just sat there looking at the screen, looking at all these scenes, and just smiling all the time, you know.
Same.
So yeah, that's one cameo that it was it for me. Like, this movie is just the summer movie for me. A cameo that I was disappointed. Like Michael, I really can't say which one disappointed me the most. I think it was great seeing this ensemble cast of cameos just popping left and right. So that's it for me.
All right, man. Ace, how about you, man? You saw this 2 times in one day, and the cameos, they were flowing. Which one hit you the most?
Yep. Being that you see it twice in one day, it's kind of like, you know, the first time you're taking it all in. Second time, after you know, you can kind of observe. None of you guys mentioned that when you need the cavalry, you call in the Calvarine.
Oh my god, I feel so-
Henry Cavill
Wow,
in that
yeah.
quick appearance, like
that was
that
great.
right there.
That was good.
Cameo wise, this is what a lot of us expected from Multiverse of Madness. Now, granted, you had the big cameos like you guys had all mentioned. Elektra, Gambit, which was great. Blade was amazing. I also thought about T when he said that line, because me and T went back and forth if that line was good or not a couple of months
It's
ago.
great.
So as soon as that happened, we went back and forth. But the little things like the quick Hulk appearance was great for me. You know what I'm saying? Because like when
Oh
he came
man,
in,
I wanted
and
them to fight so bad.
yeah, real quickly how they showed it first in the claws and then behind him was great. Happy was great as well, especially considering that he was in the first Daredevil movie. A little bit annoyed they didn't mention that at all. Like he didn't say anything about it. The exposition on cameos though was really good. Like when they mentioned Daredevil to Elektra, that was good for me. Punisher was brought up multiple times, which makes me think Thomas Jane's Punisher is in this, because if you look in the background too, you see the Russian from his movie in there.
Yeah.
That was really good as well. So the little sprinkles of cameos did it for me as well, but the big ones were great. But yeah, when I saw Henry Cavill, that got a big audience reaction from my theater, along with Blade as well. It was just, and how they made fun of him was really good as well. Like they took shots at Gambit throughout this entire one. The line that had me weak though, when he was like, "They call me Gambit," he's like, "You want them to call you that, but you know they don't really want to, because we didn't really want him as Gambit," was hilarious. Also the playing around with the, I wish that we had this one in here. Like he was like, "Is Magneto gonna show up?" Like no, and he's like that
Yeah.
did it for me. It's a lot of like burst out of the F word. I don't want to say it on Zach's channel, but that's exactly what did it for me. Just, even if they weren't in it, just the fact that you referenced them and even brought them up brings it to light in this universe. And I just thought this went cameo quality over cameo quantity, in my opinion, and it just made for such a great experience. But it didn't make or break the movie. The movie to me was still solid. Deadpool and Wolverine is obviously at the forefront, but the cameos were good icing on top of the cake.
I kind of want to go back to one of the things that Frank mentioned, where he said this was an homage to the 20th Century Fox characters. And actually, I want to go one step further, and I want to have a discussion a little bit about this whole Deadpool saving the MCU and Deadpool coming into the MCU, because one of the things that really surprised me about this movie and subverted my expectations was this isn't really Deadpool in the MCU. This isn't really Deadpool coming into the MCU, saving the MCU. What this movie is kind of commenting on is that the MCU is not the be all end all. There was the Fox world, and the Fox characters and the Fox world matters, and they have worth to them, because with the whole TVA, which this was some of the stuff in the movie that was kind of like, I'm not quite sure the writing was fully cooked here when they were coming up with these ideas. Like when the TVA is bringing Deadpool over and he's like, "Hey, we're going to bring you over to the Sacred Timeline because we think you'd be great for it." I'm like, okay, why? Oh, we've been surveilling you. Okay, but why? Like it didn't really connect to me as why they wanted him so badly to come over, because his universe was dying, besides the fact that he was the main character. But I was really surprised that like he really didn't go into the MCU. If anything, this was all about avoiding going into the MCU and saving the universe, the Fox universe that was dying off. And it was so meta in that way too, because like the fans don't really care that much about Fox anymore, even though it's been around longer than the MCU. It gets overshadowed by the MCU. And I thought it was really interesting that the whole movie was commenting and was showing that perspective of Deadpool, where it's like, I don't want to leave my universe. The MCU, yeah, they're great, but I have worth here too. And it worked on so many levels for me that I wasn't expecting. How do you guys perceive the whole narrative of Marvel Jesus, of this being a savior for the MCU? When to me, this isn't even Deadpool joining the MCU. This is like Deadpool visiting the MCU, because he doesn't even remain there. I'll start with you, Frank. What do you think of that?
The one thing I could think about is just the scene where he breaks the fourth wall at a maximum effort and says, "Suck it, Fox."
Yeah, that was hilarious.
That was hilarious.
It was everything, because right there, that's when you know it's exactly what you're asking, Zach. But yeah, there wasn't really anything to kind of indicate like, okay, there's two aspects. There's Happy at the very beginning, which also mentions, Earth 616, the sacred
Yeah.
timeline. And, that's a whole other speculation and discussion that, you and I can get into. But then there's Hunter B-15 from Loki, showing up at the very end.
Yeah.
And I kind of like how they worked that out, because they, there's no indication other than Deadpool saying, like, when they talked about Eliath, and he goes, "Oh, Eliath from Loki season 1, episode 5."
Episode 5? Yeah, that was great.
Right. Yeah, I mean, besides that, which was just the most subtlest thing to kind of write in, but it really didn't feel like, the movie was making audience say, make them feel that they should research or anything at that. At least I don't think so. So I think, I think when putting it in a way where he's like, visiting the MCU, I think it leaves a question of like, will this linger on, and how will this play out in the grand scheme of things? And by the way, San Diego Comic-Con is happening right now, so we'll probably find out a little bit more.
Well, Kevin Feige does say this is the beginning of the mutant era, which I do find interesting because, as mentioned before, the only scene technically in the MCU is the beginning with Happy Hogan in the interview. Everything else is taking place on Deadpool's world, and even Hunter B-15 from Loki comes from her universe to his universe. She leaves the MCU to come to him. So the 5%, 2% of this movie is in the MCU. The rest of it is not, and it doesn't even remain in the MCU. They stay in their separate world.
In all honesty, I don't subscribe to the, Fox universe, DC universe. Like, they're all superhero movies to me. So this was a superhero movie. Like, the superhero fatigue that everybody says exists, this movie kind of is showing that. I mean, to some people, it still might. They might not enjoy Deadpool as much as I do. They might not enjoy Logan as much as everyone else does. But like, the more you were speaking about it, like, this wasn't an MCU movie. They pretty much said that at the beginning. And as I mentioned, like, at the opening scene, it was like, this is not Captain America. This ain't Brave New World. This is Deadpool. So the fact that he ended up still, he saved his universe in order for him to continue doing what he does. Like, we'll see. They said this wasn't a sequel to Deadpool 2. Like, we're gonna get a quote unquote, Deadpool 3 in the future. So this, he's not the MCU set. I mean, money wise, he is, because they're about to make a boatload of money. But like, that, to me, that was like the running joke of it, like, but he's not. Like, and at the end, it shows that he's not. He just wants to save his world so he can continue to make Deadpool movies. So there's a lot of meta, like inside baseball type thing, that was going on with this movie that played out on screen. But I mean, I don't think he saved. I think Fantastic Four is going to sink or swim at the MCU. Like, whether or not that movie is good or not, it's really going to sink or swim the MCU.
And they're filming as we speak. They are creating history right now. We'll see how it turns out. Ace, do you see this as an MCU movie, or how do you view this movie now that you've seen it in its entirety?
I think of this as more of a love letter to Fox. Like, a lot of people have said that, but it's like a good send off, because it's kind of like a bridge movie, because it has aspects of both. It has the majority Fox characters, but it also sprinkles in enough MCU to say, okay, now because it's Disney property, it can tie in, making all that stuff easier to bridge over through Deadpool to the point where we accept it. You know what I'm saying? Because the entire thing, like, outside of certain things, like you guys said, Happy, and, why was Thor crying? You know what I'm saying? Like, where he was in it with Thor, where that scene looked like it was a scene from Dark World. But
that was just
Deadpool
Dark
was
World,
inserted.
right? With Loki taken out and Deadpool put in?
With Deadpool in it, yeah. So it goes to show, it kind of makes me think of, like, the Ralph Boner joke where we first saw Quicksilver. This movie was just more of a tease of, we're capable of doing that, and we're going to do it for the future, but we want to give the Fox a proper send-off, and added paid beautifully by that tribute at the end. You know what I'm saying? That Fox tribute got me. Like, I was sitting there like, man, watching
Yeah.
this entire, all the behind the scenes and how well it was edited, it was beautiful. So I take this as, like T says, it's a superhero movie. You know what I'm saying? It's in the MCU as far as movie wise, because Disney owns it all now. But I think it's just more of a transition ending Fox and just eventually moving them over to the MCU.
Even after watching every single trailer, I didn't really know what they were gonna kind of do. I thought, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this specific book. I thought they were gonna take a lot of like liberties from the book Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
I thought maybe
Mhm.
that has something to do with it. Like maybe the reason of him like doing the thing with his watch where he's going back in time kills like the Marvel universe or something, and he has to restore it, which is why you see the 20th Century Fox logo, which that was pretty great. So I didn't really know how they were going to do it, and I don't really know if this is much of a MCU film because I don't really see how Deadpool is going to play in like Secret Wars if he is in that. From what I don't know exactly how that's going to work. It just doesn't really seem like it would fit, even if they were able to put him in there. So this is more of just like I want to say this movie was more of like a, hey, we know Marvel hasn't really, not even just the MCU, just Marvel in general, whether it's the Sonyverse, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This was kind of like Ryan Reynolds and Shawn Levy and Hugh Jackman saying, hey, we know you guys haven't really been loving Marvel lately. I mean, they even made that clear when someone, I forgot who said it hasn't been the best since Endgame in the movie. Basically it was just like, we know it hasn't been great, so here is something you guys have been wanting, because we gave you Morbius, we gave you Madam Web, we gave you everything after Endgame.
They didn't do any of that to us. Don't put that on Shawn Levy and Ryan. They did not give us that.
That was Sony.
Exactly.
That was Sony.
Sony, yeah.
I think they were. I think they wanted to do an apology for everybody, just in general. But I think this is more of just like an apology to all the Marvel fans that have been very disappointed with whatever universe, whatever movie is coming from what universe. So it's more of just a love letter, like Ace has said. It's just a perfect love letter to Marvel fans and Fox fans, and just says, here you go. Here's your birthday and your Christmas present, and that's all you're gonna get for right now. Enjoy and just sit back.
Let's talk about some of the things that might not have worked. Because we've been gushing, we've been really enjoying this movie so far. Was there anything for you guys that maybe didn't click the way that you thought it was going to click, or that they wanted it to click? For me, it's the villain. I thought that Cassandra Nova was a cool villain, and I thought the actress did a great job with her performance. But the writing for me was just to give exposition with Deadpool and Wolverine, getting inside their minds literally, and
Yeah, that was
just
weird.
explaining what was going on with them. Like, oh, Wolverine, he let all the X-Men die, and that's why he's like this. And Deadpool lost his girlfriend, and that's why he's like this. And it just kind of, I don't know, it felt lazy to me. It didn't really feel like the emotion that they were going for worked in that way, because it just felt so shoehorned in for me in particular. And it made the villain super weak too, because it didn't really feel like she had much of a motivation until the ending, when she was just suddenly like, I'm just gonna destroy all the universes and make them all the void. I was like, oh, okay. Well, there we go with that. Was there anything for you guys that didn't quite click the way you were hoping that it was gonna click? We'll start with you, Michael.
I want to say, yeah, I agree with Cassandra Nova. I mean, I don't think she was a horrible villain. It's just the motivation just didn't really make any sense for what she was trying to accomplish. And a lot of those scenes where like she's really getting in their minds with her hands, that really just looked like it was a big headache. Like if that were to happen in real life, it was a definitely interesting effect. But yeah, her villain just didn't really do too much. And you know, I guarantee there's going to be a lot of people that aren't really going to pay attention or dissect her as a villain, because they're just going to go into Deadpool and Wolverine expecting it just to be just a self-aware, fun action film. Which is why I said like how much I loved this film was able to overshadow some of the things that didn't work. So I can kind of agree. The other thing that didn't 100% work for me is even though I love the fact that this movie definitely does start things off really fast, I feel like they did rush a little bit of Deadpool getting, being kidnapped by the TVA. I just felt like it was very quick, because like we got to see Deadpool. He's working at that car dealership, which was pretty damn hilarious. I love all those scenes. But it was just, it felt very, very rushed because like we get to see Vanessa again, which was awesome. You know, we get to see Kyoko and Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Colossus, and it's all just very rushed. Like it was just kind of little small scenes, and then it quickly goes away, and then like we're automatically supposed to feel sad now because Deadpool's about to lose the people that he loves. I'm like, well, that was like very quick though. Like it was just, it felt very fast for me. But as I said, you know, since we've gotten to know these characters within the course of 2 films, I feel like the emotion kind of sets in our head where it's like we've seen the two other films, we know how these characters are together. But I feel like watching this movie just by itself, because honestly, you could watch this movie by itself without having to see the other ones, even though it would help. Like I said, there were just some aspects that felt very rushed and just wasn't really tackled on as best as I hoped it would have. But at the end of the day, I don't really think too many people are going to complain about it. That's just me, though.
Yeah. And after doing our rewatches, I will say I found it very weird that TJ Miller was not in that room, especially since they had the big guy with the beard that they called Gandalf in the first movie. Like when I saw him there, him. When I saw him there, I was like, you're just a standing because TJ Miller's out of this franchise, aren't you? Like, why are you here? You've never really been a presence in the movies before. So that was just a little thing that stuck out to me since we watched the other ones so recently.
The only negative I really had was Cassandra Nova, and the reason why I had her as a negative is I just don't feel like her as a villain worked for this specific movie. Like, if you know Cassandra Nova's power set, like she is Xavier's twin sister, like they nerfed her for this movie because you got 2 guys who are very, everything they do is punching, right? They're stabbing, punching. Like they should have not even gotten close to her. Like she's an Omega level, like her mind should have, like she has Charles Xavier's mind. Like she is his doppelganger for you know, all intents and purposes. So I just like, man, right when she showed up, I was like, in my mind, I was like, how are they gonna beat her? Like how do you beat, like how do you two people who have claws and swords beat somebody with, you know, the mind power? And of course you got Juggernaut's helmet, Magneto, like that whole disposition about getting a helmet. That doesn't work. That would never work on Charles Xavier. So it should not have, like, if you've read any comics with her involved, like it takes the entire X-Men. It takes every X-Men team, X-Force, you know, X-Men blue, yellow, whatever team you have. Like she's such an overpowered mutant. So that was the only negative I really had, was like, man, they should not have been able to beat her. Even if those 2 guys were below her and, you know, doing the thing at the end, they just underpowered her to the point where it just was, to me, it was poorly written. Like her power set, knowing who Cassandra Nova is, she doesn't need to touch you in order to affect you. Like that's a thing that they wrote in as the, you know, the plot device in order for them to be able to beat her. But yeah, that was my only negative gripe with the movie, was just how they depowered her in order to make her beatable.
I think we might as well call ourselves the anti-Cassandra Nova folks,
Basically,
because really, it's like just to piggyback on what T just said. I feel like there were room to kind of improve more on this character as a villain, and I think that's been a recurring thing for the MCU as a whole. Is that you know, you look at the previous villains like Thanos, Killmonger, Obadiah, and others that I can't remember that are good, but you know, it's clouded by ones that we've seen previously, and a lot of them have not really stood out. You know, it's either a waste or it's just, you know, it just wasn't enough. Like with this villain.
Just to be clear, the actress who played, like, I thought she was phenomenal. Like,
Yeah,
I
Emma
thought,
Curran
like,
was great.
Like, she was great.
Yes.
Like, it's not her. It was just the way they wrote the character. Like, I don't want to seem like I'm knocking her, because I would love to see her in another MCU movie. Like, I would love to see her come back as like a villain in an X-Men movie, because she had great screen presence. She was phenomenal in her role. I just thought the character itself in this movie. In any other movie, I think she works. But just this movie itself, I just didn't think she worked.
I
I
agree.
mean, we could keep in mind that
Fair.
there's still other variants of Cassandra, so she could still reprise that same role, and with additional writers to kind of add more to justify what was missing, and it would pay off tremendously.
I didn't take it as this movie had a true villain. I thought that it had obstacles in the way to get to the goal of ultimately saving Deadpool's universe. Like Paradox was, one of the first obstacles. Cassandra Nova, one of the first obstacles. The Deadpool core at the end, another obstacle that they just had to kind of overcome to get to the goal. So I think that ultimately this movie does well without a true villain because it's trying to get to a goal by any means necessary.
Speaking of the variants too, the whole thing with like the variant Deadpools coming through in the third act,
So good.
that didn't work for me. That didn't work for me.
Ooh.
I didn't get it. I saw it twice, and I was like, I don't get why they're fighting. I don't get why they're trying to stop Deadpool. I still missed dialogue second time. I don't know, but they just all came through the portal, and then there was a fight, and I was like, I don't get what's happening right now at all.
That's one of the
that as a-
hugest
I took
mystery.
that-
Like why the TVA pruned all those Deadpools and just put them in this one zone of those that were part of the resistance, or they were their own barbaric tribe of Deadpools in the void. So
Well, there was an excuse for it, honestly, and that, Zach, was just to give us a bad ASS action sequence. That was probably the reason. And I gotta tell
it
you,
was fun, but for me, it was just kind of like visually, I wasn't invested. I was like, I don't get why they're trying to stop. Like, I don't get this at
Exactly.
all. I just
I'll
didn't get it.
I'll tell you this: I lost my mind when Hugh Jackman put the mask on. You
That
do
was
not
cool.
know. I'm like, finally, it only took 20, like whatever Deadpool said, it only took 20 years for that to happen.
out of nowhere, by the way, because where did he get that from? Because it wasn't
was
like a
it was
hoodie.
like-
It just came out of nowhere. It felt like when
noticed that
Kylo Ren
too.
pulled out the lightsaber. Like, where did that come from? CinemaSin is gonna have a good time with that one. I actually love that one take fight sequence. Visual wise, no, I'm not gonna say it was the best visually, because even when Hugh Jackman had the cowl on, it looked great, but it still looked a little bit like you can tell it was a lot of CGI and there and stuff like that. But I was still blown away by that. I personally love the one take fight scenes, like when they did it in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Cobra Kai season 2. You know what I'm saying? Because it keeps you, when they do the fight scenes, it shows you exactly where you're supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? Instead of a whole bunch of just random cut scenes and stuff like that. But for me, like I said, the villains weren't bad. Plot was kind of basic in my opinion, but it's okay. It didn't take away from the overall movie because it was still very, very fun. Like, it doesn't have to be some super intricate plot. It's not trying to reinvent the superhero wheel. It's very self-aware of what kind of movie it wants to be, and it delivers that, in my opinion. So all that, like I said, I don't really have anything I didn't like about it. For my reviews, I kind of put it in the mixed section, how I like the plot, but I didn't really have anything that I didn't like about this.
I thought that all the fights looked great. My favorite one was in the car when it was Deadpool and Wolverine just fighting in the Honda. I thought that was so creative and so great. And we could go on and on and on about this movie. I mean, we've been waiting for 2 years for it. I'm sure we'll go on and on for another 2 years talking about this movie. But for now, we are out of time for our spoiler discussion. But before we go, I need to hear from you guys. How would you recommend Deadpool and Wolverine? Let's hear from you first, T.
So this will definitely be a strong, because it's just a great time, like at the movie theater. My theater wasn't packed when I went and saw it. My two favorite moviegoers were right behind me again. They've become like a staple in my movie going. The father and son, who are super loud, but like they had a great time. The entire audience had a great time. People clapped. Like it was just a good time at the theater. Like, and that's what I go to the movies for. I love to have a fun time at the theater. I don't care. Like, is the plot the greatest? Probably not, but it doesn't matter, right? You got to see Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, who we really didn't talk about at all during the spoiler review, was like how great Hugh Jackman was. Like, I thought he was phenomenal in this movie.
He was awesome.
And
getting to see the Age of Apocalypse Wolverine on the big screen, which is one of my favorite storybook arcs of all time. One-handed metal, just phenomenal. high recommend. Like I love this movie because it was just a good time at the theater. Oh, you can find me at my YouTube channel, Have You Seen That with T? And you could also find me on Letterboxd at Have You Seen That with T, where I definitely post a lot of very short and concise movie reviews.
What about Short Logan?
That was
Oh, that was so
hilarious.
good.
I
That
was
was
just thinking
so
about
good. Comic accurate Logan.
Great.
Comic
Oh,
book
man.
accurate.
Great.
Yep.
That was one of my favorite variants. That was so I thought they could have gone further with the variants. When they got to the eventual Wolverine, I was like, oh man, it's over already. That was so fast.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
they could have done. I think they could have done a little bit more with that.
I'm gonna give it a strong recommend. This to me checked all the boxes that I expect from a fun Marvel movie, and this is what it's trying to be at the end of the day. It's trying to be a movie that's fun, not take itself super serious. I think box office wise, it will save the MCU. I can see this doing big numbers right now. Overall, like I said, I don't think this goes in my top 5. It's really hard to take out anything in the top 5, but I would definitely put this in my top 10 Marvel movies. And it's definitely something that's rewatchable. The crowd reaction first time at the 3 o'clock hour was amazing. The 6 o'clock, I was a little bit disappointed in them. I think I was the only one that was still excited. But it gives you those constant, like, slow clap moments, but nothing like an uproar like, Avengers Endgame or No Way Home. But it's not trying to be that. It's just trying to tell the story that it's trying to tell, and I think it absolutely works for it. And I'm actually going to go probably see it again, probably tomorrow. You can find me at the Ace Avenue for your sports, movies, and more. I just did my spoiler-free review to Deadpool and Wolverine. The Fox Watch will continue past this movie. I'm definitely going to finish all 18 of those. And yeah, you can find me right there.
Michael, how about you?
I give it a strong recommend. Like we talked about it through this whole video. I'm surprised we were able to keep it under an hour. So good job on ours, guys. But I strong recommend. I love this movie. I wouldn't say it's very similar to Ace. I wouldn't say it's in my top 5. But it's definitely up there. I mean, obviously number 1 Marvel movie for me of all time is Spider-Man 2, which very soon we'll get that review out, Zach.
Oh, it's still coming?
Yeah, I finally can edit that now and upload it because it's 2 months too late that we've been waiting on that one. I'm probably going to see this movie more than once, no doubt. Yeah, so you can just find me, just my name right there, Michael Entity. I will be posting my Deadpool and Wolverine review, I want to say either Sunday or maybe late Monday. Be excited for that because this is, I mean, with the rest of the year coming, I don't know how any other movie is going to top this as being my number 1 film of the year, so I guess we'll see. But look forward to more videos soon.
Frank, how would you recommend this movie?
It's a 100% recommend, and this is a movie for the summer. It is for everyone, whether or not you're a traditional Marvel cinematic aficionado, a fan itself, or not a fan in general, and just don't like going to the movie theaters, like one of my buddies from work. Just definitely watch it. It is, man. It's worth the entertainment. You guys can find me as Optimistic Forever on Instagram and Twitter, as well as YouTube. And San Diego is this weekend, so hope you guys can catch up on the good news.
I'm gonna do a little bit of a cheat here, and I'm gonna go through some of the levels. I think that if you're a very casual superhero genre fan, I think this is a weak recommend. I think it banks a lot on previous knowledge of past projects, of the Fox universe, of characters, of actors who played characters and their real lives. There's a lot of meta jokes in here that I think are going to lose you if you just kind of check in on these every once in a while. If you are a huge Deadpool fan, if you've watched everything Fox Universe, if you've watched everything MCU Universe, if you can't get enough of this stuff, I will give it a strong recommend. I do think that there's so much in here that's going to tickle your fandom bone, and I think there's so much in here that you're going to get a real kick out of. But for me personally, if I'm just talking to you from my perspective, and it's kind of consistent with the whole Deadpool franchise, it's a solid recommend. I think it's a very good time. I think it's very fun. I think Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are fantastic together throughout the entire thing. The jokes land, I would say, 90% of the time for me in particular. I do think the cameos, there's a one and done with the cameos for me in this a little bit, because the anticipation of seeing who's going to show up and when they finally do show up is a lot of the fun of the movie. But opposed to like a No Way Home, I'm not attached to any of these cameos. Like when Johnny Storm shows up, I'm excited because it's Chris Evans and it's cool to see him back in this role. But I never loved him. I never loved that character. So I'm not really attached to that. I never was attached to Elektra. So I never really cared that Elektra's in here either. Blade is probably the one that I think is Blade and X-23 are probably the ones where I'm like, that is the most cool. That is definitely cool. And then Gambit's, of course, going to go over anyone's head if you don't even know the history of what Channing Tatum was trying to do with that character. So I think there's so much fun in this movie. I think the action is stellar. I think the lead characters are stellar. But there are some things that hold it back from being a straightforward, strong recommend. But it is definitely a solid recommend from me. Well, that's it. The buildup has come and gone. That was our Deadpool and Wolverine rewatch series. There is so much more that we could have gotten into, but I appreciate you guys being here, giving your time to talk Deadpool and Wolverine with me. With that said, thank you guys so much for joining us for this rewatch series. We'll be back next week with our regular news coverage and discussions. Take care.